Good morning and welcome to Sunday. I'm so glad to be here and I'm so glad that you are too. I just realized I didn't have my headphones in and they're in the other room, so we'll just go without them. I'm sure the audio just kidding. We're gonna bring them out now. Okay, so this is what you call being willing to be messy and being willing to be like, it's not always gonna go perfectly. Of course, they're not gonna connect. Okay, so we'll go without the audio working. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I could pull it off, but I can't. That is what you call being willing to make it messy. And I love that that happened for several reasons. One, because normally I am over-prepared. And it feeds right into the message this morning with being willing to not always be prepared and then not beating the hell out of yourself when you're not prepared, right? When you don't have all of the things exactly as they should be, which I definitely should have had my earphones ready to go. I always have them here on my desk. And then I happened to go somewhere yesterday and I took all my workstation with me. And so naturally I didn't have them just sitting here where they normally are. It's totally fine. Right? How many times does that happen in your life where you're like, this is the way it should be. And then when it doesn't play out that way, you're like, fuck, what is wrong with me? Why did this work the way it should? Why wasn't this the way it should be? Or why didn't so-and-so do it the way they should do it? Right? So I'm glad that that worked out that way because that's a lesson in and of itself is like, sometimes things actually just go differently. There really isn't a should or a should, a right way or a shouldn't be or whatever, however you want to think about it. I just think about it like the shoulds. We have all these notions about how things should be, and yet there's no book to check that against. There's no way to regulate how things actually should be. It's really up to your mind and your head and your sense of knowing what feels right for you. But what feels right for you isn't necessarily going to feel right for someone else. And when we show up wanting to impose our beliefs of what should and shouldn't be, that's where we get into trouble. So I won't go too far off on that rabbit hole, although it is a good one. And it does tie right in this morning. So I want to talk about this idea that's emerged from my work with folks about needing a middleman. And I love that term for several reasons. And I'll get into some of them as we chat here. Big picture, it's this thing I've become aware of in all my 25 years of helping people, and again, initially as a therapist and now as a coach. I started to notice these themes 5 to 10 years into my working with folks in the therapy chair and becoming aware that there was a very clear theme around needing someone else in order to be able to do what you wanted to or in order to get what you wanted to have. And that's just the general way that I think about it. But it was a very clear theme that started to emerge very early on for me. And now in the work that I do with people, again, it's a very clear theme that emerges. And in my witnessing of the world, it's a very clear theme that emerges and in so many different directions. So what does it mean exactly, right? To believe that you need a middleman or I just think about it like we've become a very codependent culture, a very codependent nation, but I'm just going to say a codependent culture. And I'm not even talking about any specific culture necessarily, although I think certainly the cultures that I'm aware of are going to be more of what I'm speaking about. Although I have to say, I feel like I see this across the world in various ways, whether it's through watching the news, which I don't do anymore, or talking to different people from different places around the world, different things in the media. And there's just this overall arching sentiment of a need for someone else in order to be able to do what you want to do or to have what you want to have in your life. And so that's where it came up, this term, both for me personally in my life and in the work that I've been doing with different people over this huge span of time, not even just recently, where there's this belief that you need someone else. And so I just call it needing a middleman, because again, it's talked about so easily. So like thinking about how this shows up in the world, the one that's like stands out to me the most, although I would say between relationships and business, they sort of rival each other, but they show up completely different, this need for a middleman. But in business, right, there's this thing called networking. And it's so interesting just to like really be a person who studies what is going on and observes what is going on. But there's this very well-known thing of networking and within business, and this belief that it's all about who you know. And let me tell you, I fell right into that as well for many, many years. And hear me when I say, yes, of course it matters who you know, right? I mean, of course it matters who you know, but it's a very different thing to believe that you actually need to know a certain person or need the help of someone else in order to get what you want, right? And so again, I'm always looking at motivation and belief and identity for you to understand how you're showing up in the world and what you're expecting and what you're believing versus like what just is practical and what makes sense, right? So I'm not saying that there isn't use of networking and that there isn't good in connecting with people and knowing different people. Yes, of course, absolutely. But what I'm saying is if the motivation behind it and the belief behind why you're connecting with others and doing this thing called networking, right, and growing your network is because you believe that you need other people in order to create what it is that you want for your life, for yourself, for your business, then you've been misled. And that's really just the easiest way to think about it. It's a misleading thing to think that you believe that you need other people in order to have what you want. In fact, that's literally what I think when I'm referring to we're a codependent nation. Again, that we've cultivated this codependent nature within our human culture, right? Within our humanness. And I think it is part of the core of who we've become and who we've always been is this part of us that believes that we're not good enough is really what it comes down to. It's this thing that I refer to as shame, of believing that you are not yet enough, that you haven't done enough, that you don't encompass all of what you need in order to be the person that you need to be to create the life that you desire. And so I see this a lot inside of business, inside of, various positions and employers and ways of doing things in the business realm of this belief that they need someone else. And so much so that it impairs you from actually stepping out in the ways that you desire to be stepping out, and hold you back from actually believing that you can create whatever it is that you're desiring to create in your life and in business. Okay. And so I want you just to think about what ways have you believed that you need someone else in order to create what it is you want to create. Even if you just specifically look at your workplace or your business as the place to start. We're going to cover the three main areas of life and the ways that, this shows up very clearly to help you really understand what it means to feel like you need someone else to have what you desire. So inside of business, I think other ways that this shows up is when we think that we need to do certain things, right? There's these certain beliefs of what you have to do, whether it's be in the social media or it's, be speaking from the stage or be out meeting tons and tons and tons of people, all these different things, right? And if you're working for someone else, that you're limited by the person that you're working for. Or that you can't expand past whatever it is that the company that you're working for is going to allow you to expand past. And so again, it comes back to this inherent belief that you're limited by other people, okay? And whether it's literally limited by other people, right, in your immediate sphere, whether it's at your workplace, however you want to think about that, like an immediate, there's a person actually there that represents you being limited, or it's this sense of knowing that you're limited by other people, which again, I think is something that's absolutely taught and permeated. It starts, of course, in childhood, but then it's this process of where we've become more needing of things outside of ourselves, which has now expanded the development stage way past where it's needed for people to be able to thrive and survive on their own. And again, not at all that I'm promoting being by yourself, right? Because if you've been following me for a hot minute, you know I'm all about connection and being a part of a community. And yet, right, it's this very fine line of believing that you need others versus that you desire to be in partnership, you desire to be in relationship with others. And the difference creates this very distinct tone, this very distinct feeling of I'm not enough, therefore I need someone else, versus I love being connected to other amazing people. I love having, people that I can call when I'm not having the best day. Or I love that I have this huge network of people that I can reach out to when I have questions about things that are outside of my knowing. So there's a very distinct difference, and it can seem like you can actually show up in the world in the exact same way. Like your output can be exactly the same, but the motivation at which you're operating off of makes all the difference. And that's why I help people literally with what is going on in your inside world, what is going on in your internal world, what are the thoughts that you're holding on to, the beliefs that you're holding on to, because that is ultimately what defines and creates how you go about living in the world. Okay? So let me know if you're with me. Does this make sense? Thumbs up, heart, any sort of emoji. Let me know if this is making sense for you. And or if you have any questions as I'm going along, please feel free to ask. Pop them into the comments and I will respond. So in relationships, this shows up as well, of course, right? It naturally shows up in our family dynamics and the ways in which parents are over caretaking or over taking care of or being overly responsible for their kids as they're growing up. And what happens is, right, it's just a cycle, right? As parents create the children and then the children grow up and they create new children, it just becomes a cycle of teaching this same way of living, right? Where it's this codependent sort of process of teaching. And so then you just have generations where there's that feeling of needing someone else in order for you to be successful. And so inside of relationships, you have all sorts of things with just starting with that you have to have a relationship, right? There's just that sentiment in and of itself that there's something wrong with you if you're not in a relationship. And so whether you're the one who's like fully feeling that sentiment or people around you are giving you that sentiment, right? And it probably affects you to some degree. And so it just depends on where you're at with your own belief level of feeling fully secure that you're on your own, that you're not yet attached to someone else in that way, right? In relationships, I think this shows up quite a bit actually inside of a marriage, inside of a partnership, where people are bound to, again, this is all like based on the old rules of how to do things, but that there's very much a feeling of being bound to how your partner shows up in the world and how they do things, right? And so there's this sentiment of you can't actually like go out and be your own independent person when you're in a relationship, right? And so if your partner isn't on board with you doing something, then you're far less likely to do the thing you want to be doing. And it's actually been a really interesting experience as I look back even over the years, but certainly in doing my own business, how many people, when they show up, you know, in my conversations with people, have this sentiment, especially if they're a woman, that they have to run it by their husbands first. Or if there's some, you know, way that I'm proposing of a change, again, this is just across the board in all my conversations with people, they have to like talk about it with the spouse first. Now, when I'm talking to men, typically when I'm talking to men, they don't mention that. That's not like part of their thought process, right? Which again, just goes back to our larger domestication and how we've been trained as people for women that they have to check with someone else, and for men get taught that they really don't have to check with someone else. I'm not talking about scheduling, but I'm talking about bigger decision making and ultimately the way that you govern yourself, the way that you decide to move through the world. And so you see it right there, right? Now we call it all different sorts of things, right? We call it being a good wife, for instance, versus calling it being codependent. But at the end of the day, again, that's why I just have started calling it needing a middleman, because it is apparent and it's alive and it's in all the different areas of life where we believe that we need a middleman in order to have the thing that we desire or to create the life that we desire. And so it can show up so easily there in relationships and think that it's like a good thing versus really getting clear on, oh, anytime you get shut down, right, from doing what your heart desires, what your heart is like, oh, I want to do that, you are actually hurting yourself. You're actually keeping yourself from the desires of your heart. And who placed the desires of your heart on your heart? Right? The Creator did. So you've been given these very specific desires, right? These very specific excitements for life. And yet, when you then come into contact with someone else, again, whether it's literally in contact or in your belief of what the world has taught you, and the understanding is, no, you can't have it, you can't do it, or no, I don't agree with that, or no, that doesn't feel good for me, whatever it is that the other person is saying to you, you then conclude, right, the desires of your heart aren't good. There is something wrong with you. There's something wrong with what you're thinking, with what you're wanting, and ultimately, you can't have it. So it ultimately teaches us, again, over time, that you don't really know what you want. You don't really know what you need. You're not really good enough completely on your own to take care of yourself, to thrive, to be good at things, to get what you most want to be in your life. Okay, and in the last area, I just want to show you how amazing it is that it permeates literally everywhere. It shows up even in taking care of your own health, taking care of your own body. And a couple of the different ways that I see this happening is like, we come to believe that other people know better than we do what's good for us. And so then we rely, right? Again, this is looking at things over time. Then we come to rely on other people to like give us the feedback, give us the understanding of what it is that we need. And so that goes right along with your health, where you literally are waiting, energetically like waiting for people outside of yourself to tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing. Like what you should and shouldn't be eating, when you should and shouldn't be eating, you know, all the different like diets and like various like mechanisms of how to be healthy. Ultimately, if you're approaching it with this mindset of, I need someone else to tell me what to do, or what is like good or not good for me to be paying attention to or, doing, that's when when it becomes a problem, right? So for instance, if you're a person, I'll just share a personal story of my own, like just in a super simple, concrete one. I historically don't really get hungry until like later in the morning. And there have been years where I have eaten like a lot of food, right? I've eaten like, we'll just call it the 3 meals a day thing. And I eat even when I'm not hungry, right? And in just this recent couple of years, as I'm becoming more in tune with my own body and more aware of myself and what feels good, I've started to realize I actually don't need as much food as they told me that I needed, right? But being able to actually make that decision on my own has been a really interesting process to work through. But then recently, about, a few months ago, I heard someone speaking, and this person was a doctor, right? They had that title behind their name that gives them more credibility. And this doctor actually said, you don't need to eat 3 meals a day. You can actually do this, this, and this. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is the thing that I've been wanting to do. And now this person is saying that that's like a valid way to approach eating healthy and being, fully taking in as much as you should be taking in and so forth and so on to be healthy and have all of what you need and such and such. Again, I'm not medical, so I'm not wanting to give out any medical advice, just as a disclaimer. But because he then said it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can do that now. Which again, I just find so humorous because I am a person that teaches people how to think for themselves, how to feel more empowered, how to actually be more empowered. And here was one of those examples showing up for me where I have been like following what they had said, right? And sometimes really like forcing myself to like do what they had said. And then this other person comes along to like validate what my inner intuition has been saying for quite some time. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to be doing. So it is that influential. It's that permeating throughout everything you are doing. And even among well-educated, capable humans, where we find ourselves in unconsciously most of the time, right? We're having a battle. That's how I oftentimes know I'm falling into this, is there's like a battle within me that's like, I want to be doing it this way, but people say, or, the doctors say, or this person says, or the marketing strategist says, I should be doing this. And so you have that inner battle within you. That's another really good sign to know you're falling into this thing of needing a middleman, right? Not being able to fully trust yourself and your own awareness, your own intuition of what's good for you. And so again, hear me, right? I'm not saying don't listen to the doctors. I'm not saying don't listen to people who are very, knowledgeable and smart around you. It's not at all what I'm saying. Again, I want you to be going back to your motivation. And if you find yourself doubting, right, yourself, that's really the key, is anytime you find yourself doubting yourself, you know that you're having competing thoughts at play. And I just want you to also know, just inherently in who we're raised to be, majority of the humans on the planet, is to believe that you need someone else in order for you to know best, in order for you to be able to move forward in your life. We have this inherent component within us especially when we're not connected to our spiritual selves, right? When we're not owning how spiritual we actually are, or how much of us is really super incredibly powerful and amazing. And I just refer to that as our spiritual selves, right? And you're not really tuned into that, and you haven't like oriented yourself to that awareness and that knowing, then we fall back on the natural self, right? The human story, you can kind of call it. So many different ways to say that, but it's the you without the knowing that you're amazing and that you're that you're a divine being, essentially. And so it's very easy to fall into this state, which so many people in the world fall into, which is, I'm not good enough. And again, I just call it the shame, holding shame, having shame, believing that you're not enough. And I think pretty much everybody on the planet experiences that, if not ongoing, with distinct periods of time for sure. Especially like it easily comes up when you're popping into something new, right? When you come up on something new in your life, or you find yourself wanting to upgrade to a new level within your current business, within your relationship, and you're like, oh, I want like my relationship to be even better. I want my business to be even better. Yeah, of course. It's very normal, very human to experience self-doubt and uncertainty. And so underneath that, for you to be able to be clear, and let's move into what to do instead, right? How to contend with this thing called a middleman that we have inherently in us and then reinforced in us by the outside world, starting from when you're very itty bitty. What to do instead, right? And so there's a couple of, I wrote them down, is why I'm looking down here. I have a couple of just main things to really like hone in on to support you with this, which is one is to know that you have all that you need within you right now, okay? Everything that you need to be amazing and to create your best life and to live into the way that you desire to be living and to do the things that you desire to be doing in the world, whether that's in your relationships, whether that's in your business, whether that's in your health and taking care of your body, like all the areas, you are fully capable and fully able to do what you want to do. Now, you could hear that and think, no, I'm not, or, oh, but what about this or what about that? Yeah, I get it, okay? We're not looking for like all of that kind of conversation. What I'm saying is the things that are in your heart that you desire are available to you. Now, what that actually looks like or how you actually create it, those are a whole different message, okay? And what I will add to that though, right, it's you may desire something and think that it's going to be a certain way or believe like, oh, I desire this, therefore it will be this. No, that's not how it works, right? That's us getting into the human story and us wanting to be like in control of all of the pieces, which we're not. We're in control of what goes on here, what goes on in here, yes. But what that actually translates to out here is really up to your spiritual guide, right? Up to God. I call God. So it's up to however you believe spiritually, right? To actually bring forth the completion of your desire. So I want to just add that in because when you're thinking about it just very linearly, it can feel misleading. And so again, it's to be able to recognize we're dealing with a spiritual world. We're not just in the literal sense of things. And so when you find your mind going into the literal sense of things, you can just know you're trying to control things and you're actually probably operating from self-doubt. You're operating from that space of feeling not good enough, which leads us to want to be in control of things. It leads us to saying it should be this way or it shouldn't be that way, right? Which again is not actually how things work in life. So all that you need is available to you and it is within you. You are already fully capable. Do you need help? Of course, right? And so hear me, right? I'm a coach. That's literally what I do. That's how I help people is what I do in the world. It's my gift to be able to help people. And so of course you need help doing things. I'm not saying you don't need to learn new things, right? But I want you to understand you're fully capable right now. You don't need someone else to come into the picture in order for you to be able to create the thing that you desire to create. You are fully capable of it. Totally. There was a bird that just flew into the window here. You're fully capable of it. All that is within you is already available. The other thing to really hone in on for you to be able to work through this middleman thing, this codependent culture that we've been propagating, is really to choose, right? It's actually to decide that you are enough. You are capable. You are more than what you think you are. And that's really where we get caught up, right? Is thinking we're less than, thinking we can't fully do it. And so instead, it's working around that worldview, around that belief that you are capable, that you don't actually need someone else. And a lot of the times when people think like, oh, I gotta like meet the right people, right? I mean, I'll just use it in business because I feel like it comes up a lot in people's lives for business. I gotta like meet the right person, or I gotta be making the right amount of money, or if I were just doing, this, and this, I would like be able to get ahead or feel better or whatever. And so it's always something outside of themselves, right? Where they're like, I just need this other thing to be working right for me to actually be able to get where I want to go. And so anytime you're thinking in that line of thought, you're going to get slowed down. It's just like, that's how it works. You're going to slow down. And what's happening there is self-doubt is creeping in, and self-doubt comes from shame. So again, decide. You absolutely can create the thing you most want, right? So if you like want to be running your own business, you can do that. And so you're holding that belief, I absolutely can create my own business. You want to raise your income, you want to work at a different place, you want to be, making more money, you absolutely can do all of those things. And you holding it in your vision that can happen, right? You're deciding that can happen. Or it is happening is even actually a more stronger position. It is happening. Versus, oh, if I could just get this done, or if I could just get this person, or if I could just get this investor on board, or, this, company to work with me. No, it's not about you trying to get some other person in play, right? From that position of doubt. It's you believing first that thing is going to happen, and then asking, how do I make it so? How do I go about making that happen? How do I go about having that happen, right? And you're asking that to your spiritual self, to God, to however you think, to the universe. You're asking then for guidance. How do I actually do that desire that I have on my heart? And so you're making a decision, right? I am capable. And when I believe I am capable, without the help of some extraneous person, right, or a thing, right, because money is oftentimes something that people will use to say they can't do the thing that they want to be doing because they don't have enough money. Again, that's using money as the middleman, okay? So instead, you're focusing on the desire, the thing that you're like, oh, if only, right? Or, oh, I really want to be married, or, oh, I really want to be like in really good health. It's all applicable. So you're holding that desire in your heart, and you're then asking, how do I get there? How do I create that desire to be my reality? And that's when, of course, you get help with it. Like, yeah, of course, we're going to need this or that or the other thing, right? People and things and money to come in to support the thing actually coming to fruition. And so definitely you want to get the help that you need. And again, you're wanting to tap into, well, what do I need? How do I get there? Right? And then people and things will show up in your path on the way there. And that's how you know that those are the things that you need. So instead of you coming from that place of, oh, I don't know, or, oh, I need this before I can really make that happen, or, oh, I need, this, or, oh, I don't have enough money, or, oh, I got to wait for so-and-so to be able to actually really get started with the project I want to be doing. No, start with, this is the thing that I want. How do I make it happen? Right? And then you wait and you look for the things, the opportunities to show up in your life. It happens all the time. I used to not be aware that that's what was happening. Now that I'm aware and I understand how these things work, how that process actually works, I'm like, oh my gosh, this has been happening to me forever. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay? So those are the two top things to shift, right? Because ultimately it's a matter of shifting your core belief, your core understanding of how the world works. And so you're separating yourself what the world has taught you, which is that you need someone else or something else outside yourself. And so you're shifting into, I only need what's within me, right? I need me. I am enough to be able to complete the desires of my heart. And so you want to lead from there, right? And so the path, I'll add this, the path from I need outside of myself to all I need is within me. Sometimes that can take years to go from those two, like from the outside to the inward understanding, the inward position. And I just want you to know that, because even as myself, having been, well-educated, great family, all of the things that you think that you're told that you need in order to have an amazing life, and I didn't have that understanding. I, in fact, for years and years and years into my adulthood, believed I needed something else outside of me in order for me to feel okay about what I was doing or what I wanted to be doing. So just know that. And then this second thing of really coming to an understanding of all that I need is within me. Just that one concept is like kind of a big one. So again, giving yourself the time, the space, and the resources to come to a full understanding of what that actually means, that all that you need is within you. But those are the top two things that shifts from you thinking you need a middleman to you recognizing that you are totally capable and able to get the things that you most desire. And when you live from that place, right, when you know those two things and you begin to actually operate in the world that way, everything changes. Everything becomes easier, right? Not like easy, but like easeful, easier. Right? You're not like feeling like you're banging your head against the wall, because again, you are banging your head against the wall when you're waiting on someone else. Versus when you feel internally fully capable and fully able to bring into fruition that which you desire, right? Again, in every area of your life. I'm not only talking about business, relationships, love, health, feeling really good about your life overall, your life purpose, all the areas. When you are coming from that place, everything is possible. Everything that you're going to want becomes possible, becomes available. It does involve effort, of course, and it does involve work, of course, but it is from a completely new place that you actually really enjoy operating from. No longer are you trying to avoid doing the things, because you're now in this whole new presentation, in this whole new way of operating in the world. So everything then becomes so much easier. And another way, and I'll just sum it up with this, I shared this a couple weeks ago, and it seemed to really resonate with a few of you. It's this shift from operating in shame to operating in honor. And so when you shift from shame, right, which needing a middleman is totally in shame. I'm not enough, therefore I need something outside myself. And you believing that you're not enough, which leads you to having a lot of self-judgment about the way you do things and the way you show up in the world. And ultimately, it leaves you with this sentiment of something is wrong with me, okay? And listen, I was there for years, so you're in good company, everyone, wherever you are in the world and wherever you are at this juncture in your life, you're in good company, because I was there for years. So when you're in that zone, right, everything feels harder. Literally everything in your life has the potential to feel harder. Then when you come over here into honoring who you are, really, truly, deeply knowing who you are, deeply respecting who you are, and deeply loving who you are, you're living this path of honor. Honoring you, honoring what you're here for, honoring the way that you show up in the world. You're then being the most useful to others in your life, to other humans, because you're now operating from honor, and you're now deeply honoring them, wherever they're at in their journey, right? Which is completely different from how you operate when you're over here in shame. When you're over here in shame, you find something wrong with a lot of people. When you're over here in honor, right? You don't like have time to find what's wrong with other people because you're so focused on like what's good and what's possible. It just changes the entire way that you show up in the world. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining me this Sunday morning. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, to be able to share how to get liberated, because at the end of the day, that's everything that I'm about these days, is living my best life, living my life to the fullest with the most purpose, the most intention, so that it can be the most enjoyable, and being able to share that with you and help you be able to do that in your own life. I'm here for now every Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. sharing a message, sharing a training, content that helps you create your own liberation. And for those of you that actually want to work with someone to help you do this, because again, it took me years and it took me working with several different people to actually get to where I am now. So know that there's nothing wrong with you if you haven't been able to figure it out so far. And it's so much more fun to be working in partnership with another human who's already done a significant part of the journey and who can help you, right? I have a very clear process that helps you become in honor of yourself, living in honor very quickly. 6 months or less, typically. And a lot of people continue working with me way past 6 months because they see the results that they're getting in their own life. So I will drop the link here when I'm done. In the comment section, you just hop on, book a phone call, a conversation, a video call, for us to be able to get to know each other, for me to hear your story, what you are truly wanting, which a lot of people don't really know, but even if you have a sense of it, I'll help you get even more clear with what you're truly wanting in your own life. And then what's holding you back, right? Where are the middlemen showing up in your own life? Where is that self-doubt holding you back? And then we'll get really clear on the path for your specific liberation. And I will help you literally create that in working together. All right, you guys, as always, thank you so much for joining me. And between now and when I get to see you next, go do that thing you most want to be doing today. And I'll talk to you soon.